In this video, I'm going to show you how to take the character Link that we had, that I made in a previous video that walked around and swung his sword, and I'm going to show you how to pick up hearts and then have them, have that populate up here in a health bar. Okay. The first way I'm going to show you how to do it is kind of a non-elegant way, using hit tests only, and then I will show you how to do it in a much more elegant way using arrays. So this is the code from a previous video that shows how to make Link move and swing his sword. I've added a little bit of extra so that now he can't walk all the way up, and also I've added a little extra code to make him push, so he does a little push animation. Now I'm not going to need to reference any of this code, so I'm going to minimize it. So I'm going to scroll up until I get all of it, and I'm just going to minimize it. Okay. Now when you do this minimization, you might want to add some comments so you know what's under here, but I'm not going to do that because I know what's in there. So I have in my library, I have two different types of heart. I have a little heart and a big heart. So what I want to do is use the big heart to represent my health bar, or my health hearts, and little hearts to be the ones that I pick up on the stage. So I am going to drag and drop this little heart. Oops, I need to get on a layer that I can actually write on. So drag and drop this little heart, and that's going to be one he can pick up on the stage. And then I'm going to drag and drop two big hearts into his health. Okay. Alright. So what I want to do is have him start out with 1 health point, because if he had less than 1 he'd be dead, and I want it to go up to 2 when he hits here. Later I'm going to add a whole bunch of hearts here and a whole bunch up here, and I'm going to allow myself to pick up the heart. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is make a variable that represents my health. So I'm going to say var health uint equals 1. So uint is just an integer that is not negative, so a positive integer, and since the health doesn't need to be negative, I can go ahead and make health positive. And now I want to create a function that will allow Link to pick up this heart when he runs into it. So I'm going to use hitTest. So add EventListener, event, enter frame, pick up heart. Okay. So function pick up heart, event. So if Link hitTestObject hits heart 1, I want to do some stuff. So before this will work, I have to make sure that I have these instance names correct. So he should be named Link, and I have him actually locked, so let's just make sure he is named Link. Yep, his instance name is Link, but I know this one definitely doesn't have an instance name because I haven't done it yet, so I'm going to name that Heart1. Okay. Also, while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and name this one BH1 and this one BH2. Okay. So if Link hits the heart, I want to do some stuff. Well, the first thing I want to do is remove this from the stage. So remove child heart1, and then I want to increase the health by 1. And I'm going to use the trace function to just tell me what the health should be reading. So I want it to display down here in the output what the health is. So let's see if we have any. Oops, I forgot. Okay, So now when I run over him, it does disappear, but you'll see there's all this crazy stuff about child of the caller. The problem is this event listener happens all the time. It keeps doing it because we used enter frame. So it keeps looking for this heart here to remove it, but we've already removed it, so it can't really do that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm also going to need to remove this event listener from within this function, so it won't keep looking for that heart one. So I'm going to copy and paste this add event listener and change it to remove event listener. Okay, so now when we actually hit the heart, we don't get all that crazy text, and it does show us 2, which is what our health should be. So now what I want to do is I want these hearts to be displayed depending on what his health is. So if his health is 1, there should only be 1 heart. If his health is 2, there should be 2 hearts. So I'm going to create another function. And I'm going to call it display health. Okay. So what I want is if the health is equal to 1, I only want this 1 heart to be showing. Okay. If the health is equal to 2, I want both of them to be showing. So the easiest way to do this is to say, well, if health is equal to 1, make this guy not visible, and if health is equal to 2, then make him visible. Okay, so if health is equal to 1, remember we called it BH2, his visibility is equal to false, and then if, and I'm just going to copy and paste this and change it to 2 and true. Okay, so notice there's only 1 heart showing. Pick up this heart, and now there's 2. Now if you want to add a whole bunch of hearts here and a whole bunch of hearts here, this is not a terribly great way to do this. You're going to have all these different instance names for each of these hearts. You're going to have a whole bunch of different if statements with different visibilities. So I'm going to show you how to do it much more quickly and much more concisely using arrays. To be able to do that, I'm first actually going to delete all of the code that I've already done. Sorry. And I'm going to go ahead and add some more hearts to the health bar. So big hearts. Let's get my layer here. Big heart. And you don't really have to worry too much when you're doing this if they're lined up really well, because you can actually use align and distribute to get them in there nicely. So I'm just going to put a bunch of hearts in here. Then I'm going to select them all. And I'm going to use align on top, distribute horizontal center, and now they look really nice. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hearts here. I want to make sure I have more hearts in the stage, just so I can show a point about this when we get towards the end of the video. And you can actually see how many you have by the use count. So you can see I have 9 big hearts and I have 10 little hearts. Let's just add a few more, so he could just be in a sea of hearts. Okay, so before I made an instance name for the heart, I think it was this one, or that one. It was one of these little guys down here. I made the instance name for the heart, and I had an instance name for each of these. Well, instead of having to make an instance name for each of these little bitty hearts, I'm actually going to use an array to define them, so I don't have to do that. But I do want to name each one of these. So I have BH1, BH2, I'm going to name this one BH3, BH4, BH5, So the reason I'm doing this is I want to actually, when I define my array, I actually want to put these specific instance names into the array. That way I can control what position they're in, because the order that they're in is actually really important, since I need to make sure that they disappear and appear in the correct order. Now with these, because they're just scattered throughout the stage, I don't really have to worry about what order they're added into the array, so I can just add these to an array with a for loop. So essentially an array is a list containing a bunch of items. Okay, so I'm going to add these little hearts into an array using a for loop, and the way I can do that is first to add a linkage to them, the AS linkage. So I'm going to put the word little heart. Do I want to do little heart or little hearts? Yeah, I'll just do little heart. Okay. So now that I have this AS linkage for little heart, I can actually just reference all items that are little heart on the stage and add them to a for loop. So, add them to an array with a for loop. So I'm going to make the array pickups array. It's an array, new array. So I am going to leave this blank because I'm actually going to define this array using a for loop. So for var I equals 0, semicolon I less, and I'll explain all of this in just a second. It's easier to explain it once it's all already written. Okay, let me just run it to, oops, there's definitely something. Okay, we're good. Alright, so what I've done is I've said for the values from 0 to 1 less than the amount, or num children. Num children is representing the amount of items that are on the screen. If it is a little heart, pick it up and put it in the array. So this is saying from position 0, because in an array the first item in the list of the array is position 0, up to the 1 less than the total amount of hearts there are. So since there are a total of 13 hearts, the 13th heart will actually be in position 12. Okay. So pick up all these hearts is what this is saying. So for all the hearts that are on, so for all of the hearts that are on the stage is what this is saying, put them in the array. Okay. Now this is the way that you define an array with a for loop, and this syntax is pretty much always going to be the same. The things that will change are this value here, I. Notice it repeats here and here, and this word little heart will always be that AS linkage, and then pickups array will always be your variable name. Okay, so what I've done here is I've put all of these hearts into a list, also known as an array. Okay, now what I want to do is something with that list of hearts. I want to figure out, okay, if he hits one of those items, then I want to take it off the screen and I want his health to go up by 1. So I'm going to create a new function. It's going to be an enter frame function. Pick up items. I'm going to call it pick up items. So function pick up items, event : event. Okay, and I'm going to do the same kind of thing where I'm going to use a for loop, but this time I'm going to use the value j just so I don't repeat the variable. So I'm going to change this to a j. Okay, press enter. And I'm going to say if link hit hitTestObject pickups array j, close, close, open, remove child pickups array j, health equals health plus 1, and trace health. Okay, so what I've done is I've said, okay, for all of the, actually I want, instead of using numchild, I want to use pick ups array length, because I think it makes a little more sense to do it in that way. Okay. Alright, so what I'm saying is for all of the items in the array, that's what this is doing. It starts with the first item in the array, which is at position 0, and then it goes all the way up through the last one, and so that's why this represent this point, this dot length here, it's saying through the amount of items that are in the array. If link hits that item, remove it from the screen, increase the health by 1, and in the output write what health is. So the because I use the same variable here and here, this is going to, when it's running through the for loop, if this is like position 0, this would be 0 and this would be 0, and so it'll only remove the one item from the array. Let me run it just to make sure I don't have any. Okay, we're good. So now when I start picking these up, it'll remove them from the screen, but I am going to see a lot of noise in my output. This whole child of caller stuff that we actually had when we did it before we were using arrays. Now the way we got rid of it before was we used remove EventListener inside our function, but I'm going to do it slightly differently. I'm going to add 2 more lines of code. It's really just one more if statement. So right above here, I'm going to add if contains pickups array j, okay, and then I'm going to move this if statement into there. So remember before when we got this stuff about child and caller showing up in the output, that happened because it was this enter frame function was still looking for items that weren't there anymore. This statement, this if statement here, says if it's on the screen, then run through all of this stuff. So you don't really, this removes the fact, this removes its checking for it when it's no longer on the screen. It will no longer check for it. It'll only check for it if it's actually there. So let me run it and make sure my syntax is good. Okay, so now I should be able to actually see my health tracing in my output. There we go. 4, 5, 6. Alright, so everything is working good. Items are removing, my health is being traced in the output, and I don't have all of that craziness going on. So now that I have the health working properly when I pick these items up, I want it to display correctly in the health bar now. Okay, so let me just clean these up a second. So what I want to happen is I want the amount of hearts here to represent my health. Okay, and if my health is higher, I don't want it to be more than these hearts here. So what I want to do is, remember I said we would define arrays in 2 ways. You can define it by using a for loop. You can also define it by explicitly listing all of the items within these braces here, or I'm sorry, these parentheses. So I'm going to make another array and I'm going to call it health array, or life array. Let me call it life array. And I started out the same way. I say array equals new array. But instead of leaving the parentheses empty, I am going to list all of these hearts here. So remember I called them BH1 through BH, which one was that? 9. There are 9 of them on there. Okay. So I'm going to just write BH1, BH2, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Alright? So now I've defined the array explicitly. The reason I did this was to make sure that these appeared in the correct position. I wanted VH1 to be in position 0, so the first heart in position 0, the second heart in position 1, and so forth. Okay? So I don't need this for loop here to define it. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and create my function that will make the amount of hearts displayed here be equal to my health. And I'm going to write it and then I will explain it. Actually, let me just copy and paste it from my notes over here, because it's easier just to explain it when I have it listed. So I'm creating this function called display hearts, and I'm going to use inside of it 2 for loops. So what's going to happen, and notice that I've used the variables k and l. This is an L, not a 1 here. Okay, so what I've done is I've said for position 1 up to the position less than health, or I'm sorry, excuse me, yeah, position 1 up to the position of the health, make them visible. Okay, so the item in the health array, make it visible. For all the values from health and up, make them not visible, or make visibility false. So this is saying for all the ones up to the value of health, make them visible, and for all the ones less than the value of health, make them not visible. So you can see right now my health is 1, so the one in the first position is visible. Okay, now if I select here, health is 2, 2 are visible, 3, 4, 5, and it's going to look good until I get more hearts than I have in my array. Then I start getting all of this stuff here. It starts yelling at me. The reason it's doing that is I've said for the values of health up to for the position equal to health, so if health is equal to, let's say, 5. So from 5 up to the amount of hearts in this array, I'm going to make them visible false. Okay. Well, as soon as this value here is higher than this value, it doesn't know what to do anymore. So what I need to do is actually cap my function so that it will keep it from, health from getting higher than what my health can actually be. So I'm going to put this before the display heart function. So add EventListener. Okay. So I'm calling this a function cap health. Event. So if health is greater than the amount of items in the life array, so life array length, then health equals life array dot length. So this will keep this from showing up, these error messages. Now initially when I run it, it's going to actually look kind of funny, the things that are being traced out. So the highest my health should be able to get to is 9. And you can see it down here. 8, 9, 10. And then it looks like it's stopping at 10. Okay. The reason this is happening is because we have a trace statement in this function, and the one that caps it isn't run yet. So if you were to put this trace function, if you were to delete it from there and put it in here, it won't show me my health while I'm picking these up. But once I get to 9, you'll see it just says 9, 9, 9, So it's showing me that my health does in fact equal 9, and it's not actually going to 10. It went to 10 here, but then it gets knocked down to 9 down here. Okay, and that's it. You can do a lot of different things with this. You can add other types of pickups using the same thing. I have the video on how to display text and the video on how to make a health bar. So you can have pickups that have some kind of progress bar or health bar, and then you can have coins or whatever that are displayed in text. So there's a lot of different things you can do with just these few lines of code, really, without having to write a single line of code for each one of these items. It's really helpful to use arrays in these types of problems when you have a whole bunch of one type of thing.